Hello, my name is Jackson, and today I am going to be starting a new run of Dark Souls. This is probably my favorite game of all time, and with Armored Core 6 recently being announced, I just felt like I really wanted to go back to what got me into FromSoft in the first place. So, yeah, I'm just gonna do a pretty easy breezy run of the game and kind of talk about what makes it so great. Let's see, always bad at naming characters. Let's go with something like, so I have kind of a specific build in mind, so I know that for what I want to do, I should it's best if I start as the thief, but can just flip through these real quick. Can't really go wrong with any of these if you've never played before. I think some of them are probably easier to start with than others. I think generally most people would recommend the Pyromancer just because of how good Pyromancy is, and you can kind of take the build anywhere you want. The only thing I would really stress is if you've never played before, probably don't pick Deprived unless something about this just really speaks to you. Personally, I think Pyromancer is a great choice. Sorcerer can be really good if you want to do magic, and Knight and Warrior are both pretty good if you just want to do sword and board stuff. Thief is nice because it starts with the Master Key, which is probably the best starting item, and the Thief just gets it in addition to a different starting item, which is nice. But for what I want to do, I'm mainly looking at the stats, and I'm going to keep the end goal here a bit of a secret, because I think that'll make it a little more fun. It's a very, let's say, unintuitive build, and it might not make sense until we get much further into the run. So, besides the Master Key, some of the other items here that are good are probably the Tiny Beings Ring. It does a little bit of, I can't remember if this says it increases your HP a little bit, but I think there is also, there's something with this description that is not correct, I believe, and it might not actually increase your max HP. It might just do HP regen. But in any case, this item's fine. Twin Humanities can be good, but humanity is kind of a scarce resource, so if you don't really know what you're doing, it's hard to know how to make effective use of it. Black Fire Bombs are kind of the same. They have a very, very good use in speedruns, or if there's a kind of weird item you can get really early in the game. That's much easier to get if you take Black Fire Bombs, but in general, I would always kind of recommend take Master Key, take the Tiny Beings Ring, or if you don't really care about mechanical advantages, but you want something that might give you some more insight into the game's story and lore. It's not a huge insight. There's something later in the game where you get a little bit of extra context if you have this Old Witch's Ring. So that's the one I'm going to take just because I think that'll be more fun. Don't really have a strong opinion about that. These typically don't look good. Most of them look kind of strange, or in some cases potentially racially insensitive. So we're just kind of going to pick something and move on. Feeling like royalty right now. Kind of like the wavy hair. Maybe it'll look better with a different face. It looks a little better. And let's go dark blue. Just get some anime into this character. This does have the FromSoft staple of a similar face generator. You can get some really wacky stuff with that, but I don't know. This face looks okay, and well, let me specify some of this a little bit. What? I don't know why, but suddenly her skin complexion changed a lot. Go back to defaults. Yeah. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but I think I'm gonna leave this. Yeah, I don't want to waste too much time here in the character creator. Some of the future From games, I think, have a bit more you can do to make a character that I think looks more like something you would want to play as. But here it's really like I just either am picking something that looks absurd and funny, or I'm just picking something basic and just moving on. And that's what I'm going to do here. So now we have the opening cutscene.
In the age of ancients, the world was unformed, shrouded by fog. A land of grey crags, arch trees, and everlasting dragons. But then there was fire. And with fire came disparity. Heat and cold, life and death, and of course, light and dark. Then from the dark they came and found the souls of lords within the flame. Nito, the first of the dead. The Witch of Asylum and her daughters of chaos. Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, and his faithful knights. And the furtive pygmy, so easily forgotten. With the strength of lords, they challenged the dragons. Gwyn's mighty bullets peeled apart their stone skins. The witches weaved great firestorms. Nito unleashed a miasma of death and disease. And Seath, the Scaleless, betrayed his own, and the dragons were no more. Thus began the Age of Fire. But soon the flames will fade, and only dark will remain. Even now, there are only embers. And man sees not light, but only endless nights. And amongst the living are seen carriers of the accursed dark side.
So, that was the intro. Gonna get a little bit more here.
Yes, indeed. The dark side brands the undead. And in this land, the undead are corralled and led to the north. Where they are locked away to await the end of the world. This is your fate.
There's the knight from the cover of the game. Okay. We are in it now. So, let's pick this item up and get moving. So, if you've never played a FromSoft game before, you may not know exactly what to do with the information dump that the intro gives you. For the most part, it's, it's lore, backstory, setting up the world and everything. But I think what may surprise people new to From games is the intros usually are pretty relevant to, like, your actual goals as a player. Like, they will set up a conflict that you may be involved in later. They set up characters that you may encounter later. Don't really want to give anything away for people who don't want spoilers, but yeah, keeping the intro in mind can be useful as you go through the game. So these messages are mostly just explaining controls. If I were playing online, which I might switch to online in a later part of the game, but if you're playing online, other players can leave messages for you. Actually, let's see if I can switch to online right now. Don't think I can. I think I have to start from the title screen. In any case, the online stuff doesn't really make a big difference this early on. So here is our first bonfire. This is one of the most central mechanics to Dark Souls and Souls-like games as an archetype now. I think I'll explain a little bit more about what their relevance is a bit later. For now, just know that they are checkpoints. If you die, this is where you will respawn. There is a man up there. He looks kind of cool. Let's go say hi. Well, that was very rude of him. I only have a broken sword right now, so I'm not particularly interested in fighting that thing. It's another bonfire. Kind of don't need this one, but might as well. Okay, so first things first, we're gonna get our shield. There are different types of shields in this game. Smaller shields are typically better for parrying, and they're lighter. But in terms of like blocking, just like holding them up and taking hits, they tend to be weaker than the heavier shield. Okay, and the next thing, of course, is our weapon. We chose the Thief starting class, so our starting weapon is a big old knife. Especially in the early parts of the game, attacking like this is just not as effective as just going for a quick backstab. Something a little suspicious. Is that an object at the top of the stairs? It is. If you had never played before, most people who have never played before get got by that, including myself, but I've played this game so many times that I don't want to pretend like I didn't know that was coming. Uh-oh. What do we have here?
Oh, you. No, Hollow. Thank goodness. I'm done for, I'm afraid. I wish to ask something of you. Regrettably, I have failed in my mission. But perhaps you can keep the torch lit. There is an old saying in my family. Thou who art undead art chosen. And thine exodus from the Undead Asylum maketh pilgrimage to the land of ancient lords. When thou ringeth the bell of awakening, the fate of the undead thou shalt know. Well, now you know. And I can die with hope in my heart. Oh, one more thing. Here, take this. An Estus flask. An undead favorite. Oh, and this. Now I must bid farewell. I would hate to harm you after death. So go now. And thank you.
So that's really our next big chunk of information that's relevant to our goals as a player. He sort of gives us his family's sort of prophecy about the undead, which we are, and what our purpose is. So, mainly, we have to get out of this asylum, and then there's a bell we have to ring. Simple, right? Backstabs in here. And archers are really easy to backstab because the animations are so long. There's another rank guy in here who you don't really have to fight, but you can try and parry, maybe. So you could try parrying, or you could just go backstab. And this knife we start with is particularly good versus backstab, or does extra damage when you backstab. Okay, this is actually a very important, perhaps one of the most important control things to learn, because this is kind of something you might not know if you don't read this. There's plunging attacks, and there's a few parts of this game where those are just really, really good. One of which is right now. We're just gonna... Can't backstab a boss usually, so our plan here is to just dodge a lot and chip away, basically. You may also notice that he seems to like take like a bigger chunk of his health after a few swings, and that's because the other thing this knife does is it has bleed buildup. If you hit something enough times in a short period of time, you will trigger a bleed effect that will just cause them to lose an extra chunk of damage, an extra chunk of life. This guy's pretty big and slow, so once you kind of know his moveset, you just kind of stay out of the way, like what I should have done there. So we're done here. I think if you're new to the game, it's pretty reasonable to need to fight him a few times. Just because, you know, you have to get used to the combat system in Dark Souls, but in general, you just avoid when he's attacking, and then when you have openings, you just go in and hit. There's a little secret over here. Oh. Snuggly doesn't want to talk to me, I guess. Interesting. Well, maybe we'll see later. Try something. I don't know. Okay. Normally Snuggly would be a bit more talkative. Might have to, maybe I have to, like, die first to get that thing. Oh well, that'll be something for us really to talk about later.
In the ancient legends, it is stated that one day an undead shall be chosen. The Undead Asylum in pilgrimage to the land of the ancient lords. Lordran.
So, now we have arrived at the famous Firelink Shrine. This is kind of going to be our home base for most of the game. There's a few things to do here, but I think the first thing is going to be to level up. Now, as someone who's played this game quite a lot, probably not going to be putting as much points into my vitality and endurance as I would usually recommend. Vitality increases your HP and endurance increases your stamina. Pretty important to have enough of both of those. But I really want to start being able to use heavier weapons sooner rather than later. So I'm going to be prioritizing strength for a little while. Alright, let's go talk to this guy.
Well, what do we have here? You must be a new arrival. Let me guess. Fate of the undead, right? Well, you're not the first. But there's no salvation here. You'd have done better to rot in the Undead Asylum. But too late now. Well, since you're here, let me help you out. There are, actually, 2 bells of awakening. One's up above in the Undead Church. The other is far, far below, in the ruins at the base of Blight Town. Ring them both, and something happens. Brilliant, right? Not much to go on, but I have a feeling that won't stop you. So, off you go. It is why you came, isn't it? To this accursed land of the undead?
Okay, so now we have our first little twist in the story. That prophecy we were given back in the Asylum seems to have had some mistakes, or important things were left out. Apparently there's 2 bells we have to ring instead of just 1. One is up above and one is down below. Typically, going for the one up above first is recommended. That's what we're going to be doing here. If you're at all familiar with this game, you may have heard horror stories about Blight Town, which is a pretty infamous zone we're going to have to go to later. We'll talk a bit about that when we get there. For now, we're going to explore the shrine a little bit. Got another person to talk to, it looks like.
Hello there. I believe we are not acquainted. I am Petrus of Thurland. Have you business with us? If not, I'd prefer to keep a distance, if possible.
So another thing about this game is sometimes you have to talk to a character more than once to see all the dialogue. So
hello there. I realize that I have requested that we retain our distance. But I also want you to know that it is not meant in ill will. Here, take this as a token of peace. No, go ahead. It's for you.
So you might think that a copper coin is currency, but it's actually pretty much useless.
Oh my, you again. Oh, I know. How about this? I have to await my companions here anyway. So what if I were to teach you some miracles? Would that please you?
We'll say yes.
Very well. Then first, a covenant with the gods.
Okay, so this is the first covenant you can join, of which there are, I want to say, like 8 maybe in the game. Covenants are mainly attached to online play. Some of them are more just PvE focused, but they tend to give you some side objectives maybe, or some specific interactions with the online parts of the game. So we don't have a covenant yet, so there's not really any reason not to join this one.
Now let me share my miracles. Only their ultimate effectiveness will be determined by your efforts and your faith.
Okay, so we've joined the covenant. Anytime you see learn gesture, you should just do it. Most of the time they don't do anything, but they are funny. And if you are playing online, it's good to have lots of gestures. So let's talk about miracles real quick. Miracles are the faith-based spells in this game. if you're familiar with how spells work in a system like Dungeons and Dragons, you may be familiar with the idea of there being like divine magic and like arcane magic, and faith tends to be the divine side. So you have lots of healing, some utility things like getting guidance, or this lets you teleport home, or teleports you to the last bonfire you were at. And then there is here the first attempt, let's say, at an offensive spell, Force. It doesn't do damage, but it knocks things back. So I'm not planning to really be a faith-based build, although there will be some point investment into faith. So we might pick up a few miracles here and there, but we're not really going to be a caster. And to cast miracles, you need a talisman. Yeah, that's I think all there is to say about that.
Come again.
So I'm just gonna walk around a little bit here, because I believe there are a few other items we can pick up. No reason not to just get them while we're here. So that's a soul of a lost undead. There's another back this way or not. Nope, there is. Okay, fire bombs. Those are actually relatively useful early on. And there's one last thing I want to do here before we move on. This is a little like shrine. A temple in the shrine, if you would. So back here is one way you can go from Firelink Shrine to like another zone you can get to. If you keep going in this direction, is the catacombs. They are pretty difficult, especially if you're new, and especially if you don't have a lot of good gear or haven't leveled up a lot. But there is one item. Well, there's a few items you can see here that I think I'm just going to do a quick run to grab a bunch of them. Not really going to fight any of the enemies that are here. Just going to grab some items and run back to the bonfire. And as you can see, the souls I have on me right now is at 42, so even if we die, we're not really losing anything. If you are watching like guides on YouTube for like quick items to get at the beginning of the game, there's a lot of stuff that involves doing this sort of thing where you run into an area, grab a bunch of items, dodge everything, and then get out. And kind of don't want to do too much of that here, but there is one item in particular that I do really want. And that's the one right there. Okay. So I think there might be a couple other items in this cemetery, but I've already angered many of the residents here, and I'm gonna dip out before things get too hairy. So if enemies get too close to you while you're near a bonfire, you won't be able to rest there. That might happen here, but hopefully not. Okay. So the other thing a bonfire does is it resets all enemies. Anything you killed that wasn't a boss will respawn. So that's good to keep in mind. They are not... you do generally want to think about, have you made important progress when you rest? Because, yeah, it resets all the enemies. So before we progress any further, it might be interesting to just look at a few items real quick and get some of the ideas of the lore in this game. So let's start with the Estus Flask. This is one of the most important items in the game, probably the most important item in the game. This is how you heal without using a bonfire. Yeah, cool little poem here. An emerald flask from the keeper's soul. She lives to protect the flame and dies to protect it further. We'll see some other of these keepers as we journey around. Let's see here. So here's an important thing. Souls are the source of all life. Whether undead or even hollow, one continues to seek them. So these are what most people would call a soul packet. You consume them and they give you a certain amount of souls. Since souls are like the primary currency in this game, this is basically just like money or experience, because souls are both in this game. This is also another important resource, humanity, and it's also a very important resource in terms of the lore. The black sprite is called humanity, but little is known about its true nature. If the soul is the source of all life, then what distinguishes the humanity we hold within ourselves? There's lots of theories about what humanity is. Might get into some of them much later. But for now, they have two main uses for us. One, they restore a bunch of HP when we use them. The second thing is when you spend a humanity on yourself at a bonfire, you can become human. Because you can see right now we're kind of zombified. If we use a humanity at a bonfire and we click reverse hollowing, we will then take on a more human-like appearance. In fact, might as well just go ahead and show that. Let's moisturize. So now we look like a person. And this kind of gives us a few benefits. There's some minor stat changes that I think make you more resistant to certain status effects, but it's not really that relevant. The main thing is this lets you engage in online play. You can be summoned into other people's worlds as a phantom to help them. You can summon other people to help you. And also while you're human, you have an additional risk while you're human. Because you basically open up your game to be invaded by other players. Invaders will try to kill you, and if they succeed, they get your humanity. So that's the main thing with humanity, and also we can kindle bonfires by spending additional humanity, and that will increase the amount of Estus we get when we rest at that bonfire. Right, so let me check on my weapon real quick. I might be able to two-hand it. Probably not. Let's see here. No. So you can see that X for the weapon, and the fact that when I swing it, I like seem to just kind of fumble around, and that is because I don't have enough strength to use this. Two-handing a weapon instead of just one-handing it tends to decrease the amount of strength you need to hold a weapon, but we're still not even at that threshold. So for now, we're back to Bandit Knife. Alright, and we're going to head up towards the first Bell of Awakening. This is some guys here. Don't look happy to see me. I'm just gonna make a lot of use of backstabs here. Enemies later in the game tend to become, in a lot of cases, trickier to do this, but I've had so much practice with this maneuver that it's pretty trivial for me. Kind of have to get a feel for what the actual spot on the model is before the animation will begin, but it's just one of those things that once you get a feel for it, it becomes pretty easy to repeat. And if you don't want to go that route, you can just swing away for a bit. I think there's another guy down there still, but I'm not going to bother. Let's grab the item here. Well, there's an item down there. We might as well go take care of that. There was a guy up here throwing fire bombs, and getting rid of him first makes it easier to get down here without getting exploded. So you'll see I took a little bit of damage even though I blocked that. If we had a medium or heavy shield, we would take less or no damage when we were blocking. There is another item in this area down there. You can jump across this chasm to get to it. I just know what the item is, and I don't really want to... Well, let's just go for it. So, depending on your control scheme, jumping can be a little bit tricky. Basically, it requires you to sprint first, and then either you press your run button again while you are running to jump, or if using the control scheme I have, you press in on the left stick while you are running, and that will trigger the jump. But yeah, it's a little... It doesn't always feel very safe to be doing it. So the item I just got is a ring. It's a ring of sacrifice. It is useful later in the game when you have a lot more to lose. It essentially just means any humanity or souls you have on you, you won't lose them when you die. But your ring that you're wearing during sacrifice will break. That's sort of like the trade-off. Okay, another item here. There's actually a thing with this rat where generally, no matter what stage of the game you're in, it can be good to kill this rat because rats have a rare chance to drop some humanity, which is one of those resources that you can really never have too much of. So we're going to run up this way. And now we've got a little choke point. Try and... Yeah, so those two are taken care of. You may have noticed there's an enemy hiding behind here. This is a little side area that we don't need to do, but we're going to do it for completion's sake. I whiffed that pretty bad. So in here, there's an item right here. Another soul packet. And that is a stairway that would go back upstairs if it weren't boarded up. Okay. So these guys can actually be pretty deadly if they catch you with one of those wild swinging attacks. They tend to kind of get you stuck. You get stun locked by it. But you can also see that these guys like to hang off the edge. If you smack their hands before they can scramble up the side, you will knock them down, which I'm going to attempt to do here. Okay, so we got 2 down. These guys are kind of tricky to get a backstab off on because they move a lot more quickly. But they have very low health and no armor, so they're pretty easy to deal with. So this is how we actually get out of this little side zone. Just gonna grab this last item. Another humanity, it's good to have. And we're back to where we started over here. There is an additional thing to get this way. Just another soul packet. And I think we aggroed another enemy back up top. Just gotta circle back. So, generally it's advisable to bait enemies out and hit them one by one, because, yeah, getting ambushed can be pretty deadly. So if I were better at parrying, I could be trying to parry some of those heavier swings with lots of wind-up, but I just don't have very much health right now, so missing the parry is very punishing. Here. Hope we can get this way later. For now, got a big dragon, or a wyvern, I think, or a drake or something. It's not a true dragon. Kind of on another little bridge. This is a place where this dagger is kind of decent, because if you have a longer weapon that has like a really wide swing, you can actually, let me see if I can get it to happen. Yeah, if I make a wide swing here and I hit the edge of the wall or something, my sword will bounce off, and that's problematic. It interrupts your attack animation. Okay, there's a archer at the top. It's another good example of just baiting things out one at a time. See, now I'm having some trouble getting my backstabs, but I'm gonna try a little fancy over here. So, okay, now we got it. Let's go take care of this guy. It's a wooden shield. It's not very good if I remember correctly, but if you start with a class that doesn't have a shield or has a really bad one, that can be an improvement. So over here is another kind of optional side area, and I'm gonna go take a look at what's over here. So these guys like to kind of hide behind their shields and really only lower their shields to hit you. So here is a good example of when the kick maneuver is good. Kind of forces them to lower their shields for a window to hit them with. He's gotten very aggressive. Okay. You can also get a window to hit them if they attack you and their attack bounces off your shield. That can kind of stagger them briefly and give you an opportunity to hit them. But the good old backstab is always an easy way to handle this. Okay, so we're going to go down here. There's a guy right there. A little sneaky. We're going to let him do his thing for a second. And backstab. Not a problem. So here we're going to meet our first merchant.
Well now, you seem to have your wits about you. Hmm? Then you are a welcome customer. I trade for souls. Everything's for sale.
So this is an example of where you can see the souls as a currency come into play. So rather than use the souls I have to level up, I'm going to consider buying an item. There's a few items here that are just always good to have on hand, like soapstone. This residence key has some in the bot. Like these two items, all the items in here are useful. You can pick up a better weapon here. And the weapons here are incredible, but there are a few here that can be useful. The reinforced club is okay. Has some uses in certain challenge runs. Short sword is fine. A rapier, I think, can be good. A bow is here if you want to have some ranged options. The heater shield is one of the best shields to get in the early game because it has 100% damage reduction when you block. There's some armor over here that's not very appealing. I think right now we're going to go with the residence key because that has some specific use cases later on. A few other things might come back to stock up on, but I think for now
Thank you kindly.
we're going to leave them alone. There are other merchants in the game too that have different selection. So if you have a certain thing you're looking for, you might just have to look a little harder and find it later. Thanks. Okay. So that was not a great situation. You can see how two of these guys ganging up on you can be problematic. But once you can start to get them one at a time, they're much more manageable. If you're familiar with fighting games, I think the combat system in this game is a little bit easier to parse because you have a similar idea of like, you get locked into animations once you start them. You have end lag on certain animations, and a lot of sort of like back and forth, looking for openings and punishing risky moves from enemies is sort of like the back and forth bread and butter of combat in this game. So this is how we're going to get across that little gap we saw earlier. Just going to jump across from here. There's another optional item that does have some pretty good use here. That is a light crossbow. Crossbows I tend to be a little bit less, significantly less useful than a bow, because with a bow you can get you basically can aim, and you can enter a first person mode with the bow to aim better. You don't get that with the crossbow. They're shorter range. You have to rely on the lock-on. But if you really want a like medium range weapon, that's what they're good for. Okay, so here's our next bonfire. Let's rest here. Let me look at our covenant real quick, actually. I'm trying to remember where we can see it. Maybe we can't see it. I'd be thinking of one of the later games where you can... Some of the later games you get an item that is associated with the Covenant. It's kind of like where you can get better information about what your Covenant is doing. Okay. Again, enemies respawn. Respawn there. So, basically have to kill those two every time you come through here. As you can see, we have another little like choke point. We've got these two guys throwing bombs at us, and there's some guys on the other side of this bridge. This is another kind of early game sort of challenge for new players is to figure out how to navigate this situation. I always have found the best approach is to just run in here and try and take out these guys as quickly as you can. Backstab that guy. Just want to try and get down to one enemy to fight as quickly as possible, and then plenty of room to move around that backstab. So he very politely opened this door for us. And then I'm just gonna take a step through here. This guy's taken care of. There's another one right here. And another backstab will take him out for us. I really hope this isn't making this look too easy, because as a new player, I do want to stress that this can take quite some time to sort of get a hang at. Both the backstabbing but just combat in general, and like dealing with enemies. Like, I think my first playthrough, the Undead Burg, was like a few hours probably, just to be able to get consistently to the first boss here. Anyway, we're gonna get some black fire bombs here. We had some regular fire bombs we got earlier. The black fire bombs are basically just a better version of those, but they are rarer. This is another little choke point. Again, we're gonna just try and bait them one at a time. Okay, that's one down. And they both want to come together. And kind of use the environment here to force them to come through in single file. Then, yeah, okay, so they're all down. So these are the bombers from before. I'm gonna go get some revenge here for the pain and suffering they put us through. There's some items to grab. Quick, and this guy dropped something. More fire bombs. This actually looks like you can go here, but I've never done that. I've never been up here before. I don't think there is anything useful here, but it's a nice little discovery for me, so... but anyway. There is actually a particular enemy... Oh, we're still a little bit further away. We'll get to him in a second. So on top of this tower is a sniper. That would be a problem for us later. I'm just going to eliminate that problem now. He dropped his sad little pants armor. With that key we bought earlier, we can now enter into this little room. And there is a chest here that contains an item, a very powerful item here. Gold pine resin. So this is a consumable that will put lightning damage onto our weapon. It's very good, especially this early in the game when it gives a huge chunk of extra damage. But as you saw, we only got 3 of them, so we do want to kind of be careful with how we use them. This guy's being a bit difficult. Another thing you might pick up as you play is just running by enemies instead of fighting them every time. That is generally what I would do in this situation, but just to keep things sort of more interesting to watch, we're going to try and just eliminate them. Okay. So that's all the enemies, really. Well, you can see we're starting to get a little high on souls, so might be tempted to go spend them, but remember we'd have to either run by or fight all these guys to get here again. So I think for now we're going to persevere. There is one notable enemy down this way. I'm not going to fight him because it's kind of difficult at this stage. I just don't want to risk it, but you can see this Black Knight. There are sort of a handful of these guys peppered throughout the game. They are some of the most difficult enemies in just like the overworld that aren't bosses, and they usually are guarding significant items. The item at the end here that you can see is okay. I know what it is. It's honestly not really worth the effort, but the more important thing is that Black Knights drop when they die. They drop upgrade materials for your weapons, and they also drop, sometimes they will drop the weapons that they are holding. Those tend to be very good. They'll have high stat requirements to use them, but they tend to have very good damage. Okay, so here's another little trap here that is really designed just to really stick it to new players. So, because we took the master key, we can actually open this door. If you did not take the master key, you'd have to go around from the other side to open this door, because this sort of connects to a different zone. But we're going to leave this alone for now, because it's basically a way to sequence break, and I think for now we're just going to go through the more standard path through the game. It is notable, in one of these barrels there is actually hiding an item, it's hiding an enemy that drops an item. These are called crystal lizards. They hide kind of in little parts of the game, and once they are uncovered, they run away. And if you don't kill them quickly, they will actually disappear. And you'd have to like reload the area. But you can see what they just dropped. They dropped a large Titanite shard and a twinkling Titanite. These are both upgrade materials that can be very hard to come by, especially early on in the game. So getting those whenever you can is hugely important. So this next area is a boss, and I'm going to equip some humanity here in case I need extra healing. I might also try out some of that gold pine resin we picked up. Let's get into it. So you can see a long bridge ahead of us, and if you make a quick right turn here, you'll see there's a ladder. Dealing with the enemies up here will make the remaining part a lot less annoying. Okay. So you can see, like, if we were further on that bridge, they would have had quite the angle to shoot us. And that would make what's about to happen really frustrating. But that tower we were just at has another use that I will show you in a second. Okay, so this is the first proper boss of the game, the Tara Steel. This is another kind of rite of passage for new players, and this shows off that skill we learned early on in the Asylum, the plunging attack. Just get a lot of damage all at once. So you can actually just bait him back to the middle, and then go do that again if you want, which we might do here, because might not need to with this. He hits pretty hard, so you kind of do need to be careful. Let me heal real quick. There we go. So, like the first boss, the Asylum demon, the Taurus demon is pretty slow. So once you get used to his moveset, it as long as you're not panicking, you should be able to find a lot of windows to hit him safely and to heal safely, even being right on top of him. But again, I'm sure I made that look very easy, and for a new player, it is definitely not. So down this way, we're going to meet one of the most famous characters from this game. You may know him as Sunbro, but I'll let him do the introductions.
Ah, hello. You don't look hollow, far from it. I am Solaire of Astora, an adherent of the Lord of Sunlight. Now that I am undead, I have come to this great land, the birthplace of Lord Gwyn, to seek my very own son. You find that strange? Well, you should. No need to hide your reaction. I get that look all the time.
So we talk to him again.
Oh, aha.
There's some
So
other
I didn't scare you.
stuff he'll tell
I
us.
have a proposition, if you have a moment. The way I see it, our fates appear to be intertwined. In a land brimming with hollows, could that really be mere chance? So what do you say? Why not help one another on this lonely journey? This pleases me greatly. Well then, take this. We are amidst strange beings in a strange land. The flow of time itself is convoluted, with heroes centuries old phasing in and out. The very fabric wavers, and relations shift and obscure. There's no telling how much longer your world and mine will remain in contact. But use this to summon one another as spirits, cross the gaps between the worlds, and engage in jolly cooperation. Of course, we are not the only ones engaged in this, but I am a warrior of the sun. Spot my summon signature easily by its brilliant aura. If you miss it, you must be blind.
Okay, so one of the most interesting things he says there that I always come back to when thinking about this game's lore and world is he says that time is convoluted with people and places phasing in and out. I think that is something very important in understanding why this world is the way it is and, you know, the strangeness of it. And it's also sort of, I think, the justification for why you can summon people to help you or be summoned to help others. We're heroes from different places at different times being sort of connected by this sort of fraying fabric of space-time that's occurring. I just think that's really interesting. Very cool way to deal with that. So here is a place where we're going to meet an old friend, and you know, we're going to meet an old friend, but we're going to kind of be moving relatively quickly because our old friend has had a bit too much ghost peppers to eat. He's breathing fire. Yeah, so that's our friend the Wyvern, and not really interested in, you know, dealing with his, you know, heartburn right now. So this is one of the classic examples of level design in Dark Souls. You see, we find a ladder, we kick it down, and as we follow it back on this lower bridge down here, all the way, you can see these enemies are still dead. This is the last place we saved. So we have unlocked a shortcut. This will connect us back up to that bridge with the Wyvern, And then if we wanted to be, further down, maybe go back to Firelink Shrine for some reason, we could very easily slip back down this way. That's one of the most interesting and, I think, celebrated aspects of this game, is just how connected it is to itself. And I think as we progress, we'll see more and more of this, and how sort of delightful it becomes as you get deeper into parts of the game where you seem very far away, and then suddenly you are connected back to someplace familiar. So I'm going to wrap up this episode here, but before we end, I'm just going to get a little bit more strength. I think 16 should do for now. I might get one more point of vitality. Or actually, it's probably better if I go endurance. And this should open up the option to start using the Zweihander. Going forward, I plan to be using this as my main weapon. Let's check my roll real quick. You might notice that my roll seems a bit slower than it was before. It's because this weapon is very heavy. If I took off some of my clothes, I would probably be able to roll a little bit faster. In fact, I'm going to take the shield off because when I'm two-handing, I can't use a shield anyway. But yeah, this sword is one of my favorites in the game. It has some very cool moves and does a lot of damage. And we'll get to see it in use next episode. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.